Had my usual PowerPoint prepared and picked up my thumb drive and brought it with me this evening and got to put it on the thumb drive. So we'll not have a PowerPoint. And so I guess you'll have to look at me if you look up this way. But we're going to start with Exodus 31 tonight and just kind of do an overview of the last 10 chapters of the book of Exodus. A lot of this we've already discussed, we've already studied. And so we won't spend time, we'll just kind of hit the high points of the remaining chapters. But Exodus 31 is something a little different than what we've talked about thus far. Now we do recognize that there were skilled craftsmen involved in building this tabernacle. We've talked a little bit about that from time to time. And we recognize that with the things that we've talked about in connection with the construction of the tabernacle, that obviously they would have to have some skill. And how did that come about?
With God.
Okay. God did. What specifically, John, did God do?
He gave Bezalel the wisdom and knowledge in which to do the skilled crafts of the utensils and every other thing that was needed.
Okay. All right. And there was another fellow besides Bezalel. What was his name? Start with an O. I don't know if I pronounced this correctly or not. It was Oholiab. 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 And so these two gentlemen were endued with the Spirit from God, and they have had the opportunity to take a part in this work. And a lot of what we see in the book of Exodus is God telling Moses what's going on, and Moses explaining that to the people. And then we might have another recounting of that where Moses is actually making sure that the people get started in their work. And that's kind of like what we have here, is in that Moses has been given the direction by God. And you remember when he was on Mount Sinai with God, how much time did he spend up there?
40 days and 40 nights.
40 days and 40 nights. And so God told him all of this. And so a lot of what we have in Exodus is Moses recounting of what God told him. And then later on in another chapter, we'll have Moses actually telling the people what needs to be done. And then maybe even a third time, we'll be shown what was actually done. And so we know that in the rehearsal of all this, that all of these things were done according to the will of God, as was given to Moses on the mountain. And there's 2 or 3 different times that that's mentioned in the latter chapters of Exodus. And so when we come to chapter 32 about the golden calf, and we read about that, and we've already, discussed that, we'll consider that again and see what occurred and how Moses reacted, and other various things that we talk about in the remaining chapters of the book. But in chapter 31, beginning with verse 1, he says, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God and wisdom and understanding and knowledge and all kinds of craftsmanship, to make artistic designs for work in gold and silver and in bronze, and in the cutting of stones for settings, and in the carving of wood, that he might work in all kinds of craftsmanship. And behold, I myself have appointed with him Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. And in the hearts of all who are skillful I have put skill, that they may make all that I have commanded you." And he goes on to list that and talk about what all they had done. Now, when he talks about giving them the Spirit of God and wisdom and an understanding and knowledge and all kinds of craftsmanship, he's not necessarily talking about the same thing that he gave Solomon when he's talking about giving Solomon wisdom, right? Remember later on, Solomon being the third king and the final king of the United Kingdom, Solomon came to him and asked the Lord, he said, the Lord came to him and said, ask for what you want and I'll give it to you. And Solomon asked for wisdom to rule the people. And so he gave him wisdom surpassing anyone else. Lots of different kinds of wisdom. Wisdom in ruling people. Wisdom concerning and knowledge concerning plants and animals and all kinds of things like that. But here he's given these men wisdom and knowledge in the crafts necessary to be able to build the tabernacle. And so let's look at that for just a second and see in verse 4 where he gave Bezalel the ability to make artistic designs for work in gold and silver and bronze. And so when you talk about artistic designs, that's not just going out there and chipping away at some kind of jewel or something. That's the ability to see the design, to prepare that in your mind, and to make it as God would have it to be made. For example, the breastplate. God gave the jewels that were to be in the breastplate or on the breastplate. He told them how to fashion the breastplate, to hold the jewels and all of that. And he told them exactly what to put on each one of those individual jewels. He wrote the names of the tribes. The same thing for those pieces of onyx that were on the shoulders of the high priest attached to that ephod. They wrote the names of the tribes on the onyx. And an onyx stone and, say, a ruby are different stones, right? And they have different characteristics, different hardnesses probably. And so they had to be dealt with according to their own characteristics. And he gave Bezalel the opportunity and the understanding and the wisdom to be able to do that. He also told him how to work in gold. He told him how to work in silver. He told him how to work in bronze. 3 very different metals. The gold, very soft. The silver, not so much. The bronze, very hard. And also we talked about their melting points being so much different. And so, people, and I guess if Stephen was here, he could probably tell us a little more about this, but people that work in this type of work, in jewelry and that type of thing, they work a long time to understand just exactly the characteristics of gold and how to work with that. And you put them over somewhere where they're working in bronze, and they'd be like me, they'd just be lost. And so this is a whole separate craft in a craft, if you will, working with all of these different types of stones and also different metals as well. And then in verse 5 he says, in the cutting of stones for settings, this is not this type of stone that Moses may have cut and took up the mountain for the Lord Jehovah to write the 10 Commandments on. This would be precious stones for those things. And the carving of wood. And that he may work in all kinds of craftsmanship. And so, lest we just read this and blow past it, that fella had a gift. He had several gifts from Jehovah, and being able to work in all kinds of craftsmanship. So I know a little bit about that myself. I have a couple of 3 things maybe that I'm pretty good at. I have 2 or 3 crafts that I really stink at, and so I don't do as well in them as I would do with others. And so I'll have to, if I have a customer that says, we'd like for you to do this, can you give us an estimate? I say, listen, I'm not your guy for that. That's not my forte. Now, if you want something framed or built, but if you want it out of metal, that's really not my forte. If you want stucco work done, that's not my forte. But here, Bezalel, he could do it all. And he was very skillful in it. And so he and Aholiab had these craftsmen that were under them, and they worked, and they had that skill, and they made all that God had commanded them. In verse 7, the tent of meeting, and the ark of testimony, and the mercy seat upon it, and all the furniture of the tent, the table also and its utensils, and the pure gold lampstand with all its utensils, and the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering, also with all its utensils, and the laver and its stand, the woven garments as well, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons with which to carry on their priesthood, the anointing oil also, and the fragrant incense for the holy place. They are to make them according to all that I have commanded you. Now, just in review, let's talk about the tabernacle in general and what went where. Okay, this would include the court. First of all, the tabernacle was made out of what? And you say, well, it was made out of a lot of things, and that's right. What is its main structure? What is its
Acacia wood.
Okay, acacia wood, and that was what? What did it have on it?
Gold.
Gold, overlaid with gold. Okay, and the boards had what at each end?
Sockets.
Okay.
Well, it had sockets at the bottom.
Yeah, it said in sockets. What was it that actually sat in the socket? It said.
Poles.
No. Tenons. There you go. Tenons. Now, through the middle ran the poles. Okay, and they each had a ring on each board so that the pole would go down through the middle of the boards, held at the top with the rings and I can't remember exactly how it was held at the top, but at the bottom with the sockets and the tenons in the sockets. Okay. Over that, what did they put?
Ram skins and
Okay.
linen and
All right, all kinds of skins. So there was the on the very top was seal or badger, depending on which translation you look at. And under that, what was there?
Goat's hair.
Okay, there was goat's hair, and then there was just between the seal skin and the goat's hair was ram's hair dyed red, right? And then what you could see from the inside would have been what?
Linen.
Linen, that beautiful linen embroidered with the cherubim, right? The cherubim. Okay. All right. So we got the tabernacle built. What do we lack? We've got the outside perimeter of the tabernacle. Now, what else is in there as far as a wall or something's concerned?
There's a wall and a curtain that separates the holy place from the most holy place.
Okay, right. A veil or a curtain, and it was hung on 4 pillars, right? Okay, at the front, there was an enclosure, and it was hung on 5 pillars, and there was a door. And from what I read, if I'm correct in saying so, there was actually a door on each side of the front end and a stationary section in the middle, if I'm correct in that. All right, so we've got 2 sections now of building. What is one section of the building called? Most holy place, right. And that would have been on the west end of the building. All right, what's it called on the east end of the building? What was that section called? The holy place, okay. In the most holy place, then, what piece of furniture do we have?
the ark.
Ark of the Covenant, okay. On top of the Ark of the Covenant sat what?
Cherubim.
All right. What did the cherubim sit on? Mercy seat, right. But it was all one piece, right? So all of those answers are correct. You see the cherubim, you can't separate the cherubim from the mercy seat because it was all one piece. And so that's set on the Ark of the Covenant. We haven't read this yet, but we've read a portion of this. What was inside the box, the Ark of the Covenant? Bill?
The Ten Commandments, the bowl of manna, and Aaron's staff that budded.
Okay. All right. So up to this point in time, all we know that's in there are the Ten Commandments, the Testament, Ark of the Testimony. But we're going to learn later on that those other things will be added to it. All right. So does that get everything inside the most holy place? Okay. You think so, or yes, or no, or yes? Okay. You think we don't accept our things? I'm just kidding. We can. All right. In the holy place, then we've got the curtain. Okay. This is, I guess, as you're looking at it, this is most holy place. We've got the veil, and this is the holy place. What's over here?
The showbread table.
Okay, the table of showbread, and that's going to be on that north wall, right? In the holy place. I'm sorry, in the holy place. Table of showbread. What else is in there?
Hold on, lampstand.
Okay, we got the candlesticks. And I don't have 7 fingers.
It says here, lampstand.
Yes, the golden candlestick or lampstand, and that's on that south wall of the holy place. Okay, so what then is on the west end next to the veil?
Incense on.
Table of incense, altar of incense. Yes, that's correct. Altar of incense. Which piece of bonus now? Which piece of furniture did not have the poles taken out, the carrying poles taken out of it? Bill?
The Ark of the Covenant.
That's right. Very good. All right. Somebody give him a bonus. All right. So that is what we've got inside the tabernacle. Yes, Ken?
Isn't there a table for showbread?
Yeah, we talked about that. That was the first thing that was mentioned. That's on the north wall.
That's what
Yeah.
Jesus said about that David partook of the showbread, talking about going in and
Mm-hmm.
taking the showbread. I mean, Jesus referred to it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. Okay. I'm sorry?
I thought it was the priest gave it to him because it was the old showbread and they just put the new stuff in, but I don't think David was ever in.
We'll come to that.
Okay.
We'll come to it. Just keep that in your mind. It's going to be a little while, but we'll come to it. All right, so that's the tabernacle. What is outside the tabernacle? What that's associated with it?
The laver for washing.
Well, I'm not talking about furniture yet, but that's part of it. What do we call that general area outside?
Well, the court, I guess.
The court, yes, the court. Okay, and that court had a barrier or fenced off by what?
Wall of linen.
Okay, wall of linen, had pillars made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, and they were hung on those. The linen curtains were hung on those pillars all the way around. Anybody remember how big it was?
150 cubits. Well, on one side it was 150 cubits, wasn't it?
It was 150 feet.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I believe that's right. 150 feet by 75 feet.
Okay.
I believe that's right. Y'all check me on that later. Okay, now, John, inside the court, what do we have beyond? Listen close. What do we have beyond the west side of the tabernacle?
Would it be the laver for the washing of the three?
No. On the west side of the tabernacle, what do we have?
Be the altar of sacrifice altar.
Okay, no, that's not it either. The
I
answer is nothing.
No, well, I was supposed to say.
Yeah, on
the
the west,
directions.
on the west side,
Okay.
if you're looking at the court, on the west side there was nothing because the entrance was on the east, okay? And so if you're looking at the east, and that would be the right side if you're looking at a plan of the tabernacle, that would be on the right side. The east had that big gate, I think it was like 30 feet wide or something, where they brought the animals and sacrifices and everything in. Now we get to the point of the furniture now. All right, let's pretend that we're standing like the priest. We're standing in the doorway of the tent of meeting. We're looking at the outside gate of the court. What's the first thing we see there?
Altar.
All right, I'm hearing conflicting answers. Which is it?
Labor.
Okay, the laver, the brass laver, the bronze laver. Okay, and then beyond that, what was there? Altar of burnt offering, right. Okay. All right. Now, I have seen, and you may have seen as well, pictures of like 7 or 8 tables surrounding, supposed to be slaughter tables. That Scripture doesn't say anything about that. So, make sure when you're looking at those things and you're using that to teach others that, especially children, because that first image that the child sees is going to stay with him forever. Make sure that it's something that is accurate. All right, any questions or comments about that?
Yes, I just want to make one comment about the temple was set up similar to that, but that court that the temple had was the Gentiles were not to come in. It was a big, they would die because of that. I don't know if the same thing applied to the court of the tabernacle.
It did actually, yeah. And we'll talk about that when we get over into the book of Leviticus. Okay, so in verse 12 of chapter 31, Moses refers to Jehovah telling him the importance of the Sabbath. And we've talked about this before, but he's very specific in this particular section. So let's read these 7 verses together. Exodus 31 and verse 12. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, But as for you, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, You shall surely observe my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you. Therefore you are to observe the Sabbath, for it is holy to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. Pretty serious, isn't it?
Yeah.
God said, you do not profane my Sabbath. All right, so in verse 15, he goes on to be very specific. In case they don't understand what he's saying, he says, For 6 days' work may be done, but on the 7th day there is a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely be put to death. So the sons of Israel shall observe the Sabbath to celebrate the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, but on the 7th day he ceased from labor and was refreshed. And when he had finished speaking with him upon Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone written by the finger of God. So here again, he's bringing up this information that he has received this at the hand of Jehovah on the mountain of Sinai. Yes, Brother Bill.
Is there anything that specifies how far the tent of meeting was from the tabernacle?
You're talking about Moses' tent of meeting?
Right.
No, all we know is that it was outside the camp.
Right.
And Moses, I don't know if what the Scripture tells us is that Moses, especially after the golden calf incident, it says that Moses took the tent of meeting and moved it, pitched it outside the camp. So I don't know if that was his common thing to do. I mean, here we're really not even a year, from the time that they left Egypt. I don't know if that was common for him to pitch it outside the camp or what. But all I know is that's what the scripture says. And it makes me think that because of this incident, Moses says, Jehovah cannot come and meet with us inside the camp because you're stiff-necked people. You have broken the first two commandments that he gave us. And so I've removed my tent. That's kind of my idea, and that may not be correct, but that's just my opinion. So I don't know exactly, where that would have been. But we do know that from the end of Exodus 40, moving forward, that God's presence was there between the cherubim. Because by this time, Moses has already pleaded for the people of Israel on 2 or 3 occasions and said, first he says, as a matter of fact, in verse 11 of chapter 32, he says, what are the people of Egypt going to say? If they hear that you wiped us out and raised up a new nation for me, what are they going to say? He pleads with him there for the people. And so, for whatever reason, he moved that outside the camp on that occasion. Anything else about that before we move on? Okay. So we've discussed already Exodus 32 in connection with the golden calf, and then Moses' entreaty, and Moses coming down. He begged for the people actually even before he came down the mountain. And then his anger and breaking the tablets of stone that the finger of God had written, and calling the Levites to him and telling them to go out and slay those that worship the calf. And do you remember how many died on that occasion? 3,000, that's right. Okay, and so then in chapter 33, we get an indication that God is ready for the people to move, but he's telling Moses, he says, you take the people that you brought out of Egypt, and you take them on, and I'll send an angel before them, but I will not go with this stiff-necked people. And so, yes, yet again, Moses intercedes for them. In verse 12 of chapter 33, he said, see that thou didst say to me, bring up this people, but thou thyself hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Moreover, thou hast said, I have known you by name, and you have found favor in my sight. And so then he goes on to plead with God based on the standpoint that he knows Moses' name and he knows that Moses is faithful and those types of things. And so then God relents and says, okay, I will go with the people. You go hew me out 2 more stones and bring them up to the mountain. And there he stayed an additional 40 days with Jehovah and received the 10 Commandments. And that set of tablets were the ones that were placed in the Ark of the Covenant or the Testimony. And so in verse 10 of chapter 34, God said, behold, I am going to make a covenant before all your people. I will perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth, nor among any of the nations, and all the people among whom you live will see the working of the Lord, for it is a fearful thing that I'm going to perform with you. This people had seen all that had been done in Egypt, all of the plagues that had been brought upon the Egyptians. They had seen the Egyptians drown in the Red Sea. They themselves, with their very feet, had walked across the Red Sea on dry ground. And now God says, you think that was something. I'm going to show you something that's never been done before. I'm thinking, wow, how much more does he have? But God is powerful and wonderful and brilliant, and he commands the people to go forth. And so in verse 11 he says, be sure to observe what I am commanding you this day. Behold, I am going to drive out the Amorite before you, and the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Watch yourself that you make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you're going, lest it become a snare in your midst. So he's telling them, he says, I'm going to prepare this way for you. I'm going to go in and I'm going to drive out the inhabitants of the land. And we say that so easily and so casually. But these are people that know what battle's about. They have obtained and kept their land because of their abilities to fight and fend off other people. You don't think people from the east have not come over and wanted this portion of the Fertile Crescent? Wanted this portion that controls all the trade routes from all of the world down to Egypt? Of course they did. But these people were the ones that were powerful enough and cunning enough to keep their land up until this time. But they had not met an opponent like the Lord. And so after that, Moses returns back down to the people, and of course this is the time when his face shines. Excuse me. And the people are scared. Don't speak to us. Don't speak to us with your face like that. And so he veils his face, and he only uncovers it when he's not speaking, or when he's speaking to them. But when he is not, he's covering his face for that period of time. We don't know how long that lasted. Then in chapter 35, again, he emphasizes the Sabbath. He talks about the tabernacle workmen, beginning with verse 10 of chapter 35, and the specific things that they were to make as the Lord had commanded. He lists those there, from the utensils that they use with the altar of burnt offering, all the way down to the hangings of the woven garments and all of that in the most holy place, and how that they made the garments of Aaron and his sons. You remember when we first started talking about this preparation for building of the tabernacle, that God had asked people to bring a free will offering. Chapter 35 tells us that they had brought so much that Aaron, his sons, and Moses had to tell the people to quit bringing it. There was just an overabundance of material, and enough had been brought, and so they had to restrain the people from giving. And that's just a great and wonderful thing. We don't often give the Israelites credit where credit is due, but credit is due right here. They gave and they gave and they gave. And you might say, well, yeah, everything they had was from Egypt. Yes, that's right, but don't you think they might have had some kind of attachment to that? Sure. That's why God said, bring a free will offering. Bring what you will. And when he said that, they poured it out. And so that was a wonderful thing to see. And so that's how the tabernacle was underwritten, you might say, or financed. And so then in verse 8 of chapter 36, he talks about construction and how they did all that. We've already discussed all those things, so we're not going to go back and talk about all of that again. In chapter 38, he tells us that the tabernacle is completed. And beginning with verse 21, and I'm sure you've already read this, going down through verse 31, he begins to talk about what the tabernacle cost, what all went into it. And he mentions the gold and the silver and all of those things weighed according to the shekel of the sanctuary. And so we're not going to go through all of that either, but that's there for your consumption. I would encourage you to look at that, because this is a very costly tabernacle, although it was small in comparison to some of the other places of worship where they worshiped later on. In chapter 39, he gives some specifics about the priestly garments, and I think we covered that pretty well as also. But in chapter 40, we come to the point where God says, okay, it's time to erect the tabernacle. All of these things have been done and have been made, and now it's time to put it all together. Now, mind you, they had not built this one stick at a time as we would build a building today. They built and made all the materials, and then they assembled it. It's kind of like those, Butler buildings. They ship it to you and you put it together. And that's the way that was built, because it was built with wisdom and craftsmanship that had never been seen before. And all of that came because of the blessing of God. In verse 20 of chapter 40, it tells us that he took the testimony, that is the tablets that God had given Moses, and put it into the ark, and attached the poles to the ark, and put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and he brought the ark into the tabernacle, and set up a veil for the screen, and screened off the ark of the testimony, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So he goes on and describes every bit of that as they assembled it, just as you have called it out to me in the making of the tabernacle, and where each particular item went in its place. And so let's close out tonight's lesson by looking at verses 34 through 38 of Exodus 40. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting, because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the sons of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out until the day when it was taken up. For throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and there was fire in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel. Israel had built a place for God to dwell with them. And they had done so according to the instructions that God had given Moses on the mount. Had a little problem here and there, little issue with patience and obedience. And many died as a result of that. But God finally agreed to come and dwell among them once again. And to see that, it must have been something remarkable. To see that pillar of cloud in the daytime and that pillar of fire at night. And unless it moved, they stayed where they were. Can you imagine going to bed at night and you see this pillar of cloud over the tabernacle, and you know that that's God's presence residing between the cherubim on the mercy seat. And maybe dark falls, and perhaps you wake up in the middle of the night for some reason and you look, and there's that pillar of fire. That's God's presence. If we could think about the fact that God is always with us, like he was in the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. And not that we have to have some kind of physical manifestation. But if we could think about that like the Israelites thought about his presence being with them, then maybe there would be some times when we wouldn't do all those dumb things that we do. The Lord is with us. He's watching us. He's ever present. He's ever knowledgeable. He's ever powerful, omniscient, all-knowing. And he knows what we do. He knows the hairs on our head. He can count and knows the grains of sand on the seashore, the stars in the heavens. We fail sometimes to give him the glory. So let's think about that as we conclude this book of Exodus. And Lord willing, on Sunday morning, we'll start with Leviticus chapter 1. That will, require us to backtrack just a little bit to page 84 in our books. So we'll start there and we'll talk about those sacrifices, and then we'll move forward from there. Thanks so much for your attention and comments this evening.
And it's strange, God did not punish Aaron for making that golden calf for those people.
He suffered the 40 years, well, later on. I don't know, God puts up a lot of things.
Mark in your psalm book to number 295. 295. And then turn to number 273. 273. I'm not ashamed to mourn my Lord, nor to defend His cause. Maintain the honors of His word, the glory of His cross. Firm as His throne, His promise stands, and He can well secure what uncommitted to His hands till the decisive hour. Then will He on my worthless name before His Father's place, and in the new Jerusalem appoint for me a place.
I will be reading Psalm 103. Psalm 103. Debbie and I took a road trip this morning down to the Kingdom of John. If you don't know where the Kingdom of John is, it's in Wedowee. But on the way down there, it is so evident that God is present in this world. It is beautiful down through there right now. And there's no other power that I know of that could produce that other than the one that we serve. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all of His benefits. That's a benefit that we were looking at this morning. We see the change of the season, and we see all that's being made, upgraded, if you will. That is a benefit for us. Who forgives all your iniquities? We can be free of sin with him. Who heals all of your diseases? We give credit to doctors, but it's always God at the bottom of our healing, physical healing. Who redeems your life from destruction, offers us salvation. Who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies every day. Sometimes you look at a day and you say, man, what a miserable day. It's a wonderful day because you're there to see it. You could very easily be gone. Who satisfies your mouth with good things, gives us food, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. I know sometimes in life I have been hungry. I know it may not look like that. But just to eat a meal, a simple meal, it's refreshing. Our body responds to it. The Lord executes righteousness and justice for all who are oppressed. He made known his ways to Moses, and that's what we've been studying about for a while. His acts to the children of Israel. The Lord is merciful and gracious. If he wasn't, we wouldn't be here today. Slow to anger and abounding in mercy. Sometimes I see things in this world that are horrible, and I wonder to myself, why has God not destroyed us? What could those people in Sodom and Gomorrah have been doing that we can't see on TV? And you've heard me say that before. But his mercy abounds to us. And I know that it's got to be the blood of Christ that is preventing the world from being destroyed at this present time. But he will not always strive with us. That's the point I want to make. There is a day coming that we will be judged. There is a day coming that this world will end. There is a day coming that a new heaven and earth will come down. Nor will he keep his anger forever. Don't know when that day is, but he appoints it. Christ didn't know when that day was. Only the Father knew. Still does. He has not dealt with us according to our sins. What would you think would happen to all of us in this world if he held us all accountable today with no mercies? I shudder to think what it would look like. Nor has he punished us according to our iniquities. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, and that's one of Scott's favorite passages, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear him. Majority of us men are fathers. And we see our children get involved in things that we know is not good for them. And we pity them, because in our wisdom of having survived a lot of years, we know what they're in store for. Whether they will listen to us or not, God is the same way. He's our Father. He knows what we're in store for, regardless of what we do. He knows our frame, and he remembers that we are dust. If he had not breathed the force of life into us, that's what we would be. We would be dirt. As for man, his days are like grass. As a flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it and is gone, and his place remembers it no more. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, his righteousness to children's children, to such as keep his covenant. Now, we've been talking about the law of Moses a lot. We are no longer bound by that law. Does that mean we're free to do as we will? No, that means that there's another law. is the law of Christ. And so as many as keep his covenant, his commandments, and to those who remember his commandments to do them, these are who his mercy falls upon. Have you thought that because Christians are here on this earth, that God's mercy is falling on everybody? Because the world still stands. The rain still comes down. The wind still blows. And it's because of his people here and my estimation. Should we be thankful? Absolutely. Should we obey him? Absolutely. There is no other way. If you have wounded your spirit in any way, make that right today as we stand and sing.
Sinners Jesus will receive, sound his word of grace to all, who the heavenly pathway lead, all who linger, all who fall, sing it o'er and o'er again. Christ receive a sinful man, make the message clear and plain. Christ receive a sinful man. Come and he will give you rest. Trust him, for his word is plain. He will take the sinful lest. Christ receive a sinful man. Sing it o'er and o'er again. Christ receive a sinful man. Make the message clear and plain. Christ receive a sinful man. Christ receive a sinful man. Even me with all my sin, purged from every spot and stain, and with him I enter in. Sing it o'er and o'er again. Christ receive a sinful man. Make the message clear and plain. Christ receive